Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Fabulous. How are you?
Doing all right. Today, we thought that we would talk about creating content and the various things that go into that, because it is a very key element, especially, for online marketing. Your content is how you reach people. Your content is how you draw people to you, make them know, like, and trust you. And, it's what creates conversions for your business. So
yes,
that is what we figured we would focus on today. I tried to be organized, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh, I feel that.
The very first topic that we have is understanding your audience. So
I think I still struggle with this part.
You know what? I think when you're new, or even when you're intermediate, it can be a challenge, because maybe it's evolving who you think you're trying to reach. And when you first start out, because when you first start out, most often people were thinking, I want to tell everybody, right? It's everybody. And then you got to sort of break that down and break that down and break that down. Doing audience research is a way to help sort of narrow that down for you. You can use, like, what do you say here? Google Analytics. You can do that to see who you're reaching, but you can use any of your analytics. You can use the analytics on any of your social medias. It doesn't have to be Google Analytics. Whatever you're using to post with is going to give you some analytics. And then, like, seeing who you're actually reaching, and if those are the people you're trying to reach, because you may have to tweak your content in order to shift out of that, whether it's location or demographic in terms of the male, female, younger, older, that sort of thing. Another way is to go into groups, or, whether it's forum boards or actual physical groups on social media, or hashtagging and seeing who's coming up with that. Those are ways for you to sort of see who you're trying to reach and where they hang out and what is actually pulling their interest, things that they're looking for, the things that they're talking about, because that'll help you craft your content.
For sure. When you first get started out, there's a lot of follow a bunch of people who are already succeeding in your niche, or don't follow anybody who's in your niche because you don't want to muddy the waters. And there's a lot of conflicting advice out there. But I think it's important to kind of do a balance of both. Maybe not follow other successful creators within your niche, but definitely look at them, see what's working, what's not. Don't try to mimic them. Obviously, we've talked about that before. Being authentic is way better than the copy and paste methods. But do gauge from their content what they're doing that's working, and maybe tweak your message or your content or whatever just a little bit toward what's already working for them, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. And I mean, when you're scrolling, or even with emails, because email is a form of content, blogging is a form of content, what stops you? What makes you go, oh, I want to read that? Why am I looking at that? What made me stop my scroll? And then analyze that, because that is stuff that's going to help you figure out maybe how to craft things a little bit differently. But yeah, knowing your audience, you're going to try and create a buyer persona, and you can do that actually with ChatGPT. There are all sorts of ways to do that. We could probably do a whole episode just strictly on ChatGPT and some of the prompts that you can use and stuff like that. But you can even just ask it, I want to create a buyer persona. How do I do that? Ask it a question, and it will tell you, okay, this is how you would go about doing that. And then so on. And then you can sort of delve deeper and deeper and deeper into that. Basically, when you're thinking about your buyer persona, you're thinking about sort of who you are and who you think your ideal client would be. And don't say everybody, because it's not everybody. What you have to offer someone is not necessarily meant for everybody. Even if you are in the MMO, right? It's not for everybody, because not everybody's going to need what you have to sell. You're not going to be able to help everybody. A hammer is just a hammer, and it's a great tool, but it's not for every situation, right? And so you have to really look at your business in the same way. It's not a hammer, right? It's a specified tool that is good for a specified reason and specified people. So using that is important. And talk to your people, right? Create content that is engaging. So put out questions, put out polls, put out surveys, do those kinds of things. Just gauge what people want, what people are interested in. And you can start tailoring it a little bit here and there and tweaking and whatnot. And it's not an overnight process.
No, it's a journey.
I think that's the biggest struggle that I think most people have, is that they get sold so much on the, you can make it in 3 weeks.
Quit your job, and in 6 months you'll be traveling the world. No worries.
And I mean, when was the last time you started a job where you had zero experience or minimal experience, and you were an expert by the first, within the first month?
Yeah.
It's just not realistic, and it's frustrating when people try to sell you I know that they're trying to give you a dream and something to work towards, but they need to be more honest in terms of the work that's involved. Because again, not everybody's going to want to put in the work, right? And okay, we need people to do all sorts of things in this world. And so, if you know that is just not your forte, don't stress yourself out. Just recognize that it's just not that. The next thing that was on the list was storytelling. Now, I am working on this. This is something that I personally am working more on. How do you find incorporating the storytelling?
I have a lot of fun with the split personality storytelling thing, where I do the talking to myself. I think part of that's just because I really love Ryan George, and he does that a lot. But it's so funny because so many people are like, well, no one cares about the journey. They just want to see your success. So then it's like, well, no, actually, they don't care about your success, but they do want to see the journey. And again, as with anything, there's going to be conflicting information. But I know the stuff that stops my scroll is, the journey stories, or like seeing the before and after and seeing the improvements and things like that. So I try to do it a little bit more. Last year, I haven't really been doing a whole lot of it this year. I need to script out a lot more of them, because I think when you're having a problem in your life, or like you're feeling burned out, or things aren't going the way it is, it's hard to tell that story because you don't want to tell the negative. You don't necessarily want to tell the struggles, right? But that's a huge part of the story. And there's going to be people who laugh at your struggles. There's going to be people that cheer you on through your struggles. And I think there's just within storytelling itself, there's a sense of, I'm letting my armor down and I'm letting people in, that scares a lot of people. So I think that's kind of why people veer away from the storytelling aspect a little bit. But again, that's where your authenticity comes into play, right? If you're going to be raw and authentic and you're happy, you should be raw and authentic and you're miserable too.
That doesn't mean that you have to tell your deepest, darkest secrets.
Yeah, or blast your relationship problems or anything like that.
That stuff happens. And if you're somebody who's comfortable putting all of that out there, then that's who you are. And those are the people who you're going to attract. But if you're not, you don't have to do that. You'll notice that for me, I don't talk a lot about my relationships. I don't talk about my kids that much. I never have, because that's my personal space, and I prefer to keep it that way for the most part. Every so often they do something that either makes me laugh, or really, I think that could be something that other people would understand or commiserate with on occasion. Right. Teenagers be teenagers. But overall, I am working on the storytelling aspect, because I have noticed that for me, my content tends to be very educational and, not a lot of personal in it. And so I'm trying to be more open about that and creating. And a story is, you start with your hook. Now the hook in your story is usually going to be somewhere you're going to write your story out first, and then you're going to read it, and there's going to be that aha moment, or that moment where was the hardest part for you, whether if you're talking about your journey or a particular day or something like that drew you, and take because you're going to take people from the beginning to the end. But oftentimes somewhere in the middle is your key moment, and that's your hook. It's not, I want to tell you this, or I want to show you this, or, this happened one day. That's not a hook, right? A hook is usually something that stops people and goes, holy crap, like what happened here? So if you're going to be doing storytelling, then your hook is going to usually be something, either the hardest moment or your pivotal moment, that thing that created that aha, because people want to go, well, you went from what to what? How did you do that? What happened there? So.
Yeah, because there's so many funnels out there that's like, I'll show you the exact framework. I'm going to show you the exact way I did this. And then you get into it and you're like, but what? That doesn't make sense. Whereas, you know, you're getting people into your funnel. But if you're doing it in a 30-second reel, like that's got to be a really strong hook. And you've got to get good at telling the story quickly. We are seeing longer form taking effect. So I think that'll mitigate a little bit in the next coming years. But you still do have to make sure that you're not just rambling to get the count up on your video, right? You want to make sure the story is concise and it makes sense. And if it's 30 seconds, it's 30 seconds. If it's a minute and a half, it's a minute and a half. But don't drag a 30-second story into a minute and a half just for the sake of it.
And you're going to have to pull them in hardcore in the first few seconds. And that goes whether it's written or visual or auditory. It doesn't matter. You're going to have to get them in and then keep them in for those first few seconds because, yeah, attention spans are not, we don't have them anymore. Yep. I don't know where they went, but I blame MTV.
You can even see it on YouTube now with like the clickbait thumbnails and the definite clickbait titles. As much as we like to complain about clickbait, it works. That's why people do it.
I mean, what's going to stop me? If I'm looking for information about content, then something like, you know, how to make your content, you know, your content's the problem and this is the solution. And that's a lot of times that's your hook, right? Or it's something that's going to, this is your problem and here's easy ways to fix that. Whatever it is, you're going to try and keep it very concise and emotional, right? Because all of your content has to try to elicit some form of an emotion and make them
I struggle with that part. I struggle with that part.
Me too. I mean, but you know, we were discussing before I even got on here. Neither one of us are big on the whole emotional aspect of life. So
yeah.
But, you know, we're trying. We realize it's a thing. Damn it.
We're improving.
See, every day we improve, and that is important. And that's important for everybody, right? Another thing, what have we got here? You got, make it relatable.
Yeah.
So it's not just I this, me that, whatever. When you're trying to create your content and you are telling a story, and yes, it is about you, but it's not just about you. You're taking the person who is either viewing or reading your content on a journey with you. So they're your partner in it, right? So you're trying to make it so that they can put themselves in your shoes. So it has to be relatable to them. And that helps when you know who your audience is. That ties back to knowing who your audience is, because they're going to relate to your content more. They're going to relate to your story more than somebody who's like, you know, young moms. Well, I'm not there. Been there, done that, but that's no longer a concern in my life. Or dads, or, you know, the high-powered exec. Again, these are not things that I've done, so they don't really relate to me. So I'm not your target audience.
Yeah, that's been a learning curve with ice wellness because, you know, there's so many people that just jump into cold therapy and ice baths and whatnot. Literally just jump in, right? And like they watch Joe Rogan, they watch, you know, Russell Brand, they watch all these guys who are like, all right, you know, like the Vikings used to do this, let's do it. And they get very manly about it. Whereas ice wellness is kind of the complete opposite of that, of like, hey, let's actually make this a whole wellness practice and let's not freak ourselves out and let's do this calmly. Let's figure out. So it's been interesting figuring out how to tweak the message to the right niche within the niche.
Your niche within a niche, but then that also gives you an opportunity to open up more to pull into people who are in the wellness, who are conscious and actively working towards bettering their health and their mindset. You know? And this is just one more thing they can add to that. So they're not necessarily in the ice baths, but they are in the wellness and the mindset and that sort of thing. So that's another But you didn't know that when you started. You were focused, this is ice bath. So obviously I'm going to be trying to reach people who want to do ice bath and not necessarily, but that's how you learn, right? For me, when I first started this, I was all about just trying to reach people who wanted to make money. And I realized, no, what I really want to reach is the people who are mature like me, who have a lot of life experience and work experience. You know, they've been doing it their entire lives. And, you know, my generation, it was very much just suck it up and get it done.
Yeah.
You know, and do it yourself. And so I'm trying to reach those people and help them understand that you do not have to work for somebody you don't like, and you don't have to keep doing that job just because it's your safety net, or you just tolerate it. And people who are dealing with ageism, who are realizing that the older they get, the more roadblocks they get towards achieving, moving up and within their companies, or moving up in their salary because they've reached their salary cap and there is no, and it's not like they're 20 or even 30 where they can job hop, because it's not that easy to job hop. When you get to a certain age, all of a sudden you can't just change jobs every 2 years. And there's a lot of people 40 plus who want a career change. And that's a huge thing. And that's actually really super common for people to want to do a career change. So this is a way that they can do that without losing the security that they already have in place, but build something else out and then eventually transition over to that. But storytelling is where I'm going to reach those people, because prior to that, I wasn't reaching those people, because all I was doing is going, here's some knowledge.
Right. So important too to like, because I'm a Luddite from forever, and I know you embrace technology far more than I do, but I think there's a lot of people that have gotten into affiliate marketing and online marketing and just making money online in general who are older, you know, they're in their 50s, 60s, even 70s. I think those stories are super important for the people who are struggling now, who are older, so they can see, oh, this person did it, and maybe I can talk to them, and maybe they can help me, and you know, they can help me figure it out. Because there's nothing more frustrating for me than doing all the steps and having it not work. So like if I build something out and I test it and it's not working and I don't know why it's not working, it just irritates the crap out of me, and I get very irrational about it very quickly. And so I think having someone else that understands that would be more beneficial than, you know, talking to a 14-year-old who's grown up with a smartphone and they're like, what do you mean you don't know how to do this? This is super easy.
Yep, absolutely. And I understand how that can be, you know, if you've not used technology, or you've not used technology a lot, it can be very stressful.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be stressful. You just have to learn at your own pace, right? That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be people who are way ahead of you and people who cannot slow down for you. Those are not your people.
Exactly.
The next thing on our list, and this is sort of a tech thing, is SEO optimization.
That's exactly what I was working on before you and I jumped on. So SEO is huge right now, right? Because everything is transitioning to SEO. Instagram is transitioning away from hashtags to SEO. Pinterest is more SEO. YouTube is running more and more off SEO than keywords or hashtags or anything like that. And so it's tedious. It can be time consuming. So I'm in the process of switching a funnel from one area to another, basically one website to another. And one of the things that every step of the funnel requires is SEO. And now originally I had just done SEO on the main page and I was like, I don't need it on the rest. And then as I've been getting my ad data and everything else, I'm like, maybe there's something to the SEO on every page. And so I've been going down that rabbit hole a little bit more, but you want your product, your offer, whatever it is, to be as quick and easy to find as a Google search, essentially, right? So your SEO has got to be great, because the algorithms are funny, because we always talk about how powerful they are, but also how stupid they are. So you want to make it stupid simple for the algorithm to know who to put your content in front of. And that comes in your SEO. So your description needs to have the keywords of who you're trying to reach, what problem you're trying to solve, and everything like that. And I think that's a piece that we miss because we try to be so creative and so, like, oh, this is going to be amazing and over the top and that the algorithm looks at it and it's like, I have no idea what you got going on here. This is a hot mess. Versus a simple one of like, here is what I offer. And then the algorithm pushes it because it can figure it out. So it doesn't take a lot of research to figure it out. Honestly, you can do a quick, chat GPT, like, hey, give me great, SEO for these topics, right? And it'll spit out the keywords and kind of like how to tailor your descriptions and whatnot. But it's a part that does take a little bit more thinking about and planning out. And I think, I know that's where I struggle is like, I'll get a video done. And by the time I'm done editing it and everything, I'm like, quick description, go. And then I'm like, oh, well, it fell flat because it's like I put 3 words in my description. Of course, it fell flat.
Yup. Now there's keyword searchers online as well, not just Google. Like, so you get ChatGPT, you utilize that to pump out some keywords for you. Then you can go online and go to Google Keyword Planner or SEMrush or Ahrefs or whatever, and take a look at that and just plug them in and see where they're ranking. Because another thing with keywords is if everybody's using them, then they're not nearly as effective. You want to sort of find that sweet spot between no one's using them and everyone's using them, and keep that sort of in that middle area as much as you can. Maybe you use one that's really super popular, one that's much more niche down, and then the rest of however you're going to do that is in the middle. And my brain just went, and sorry, you saw that. But don't just pepper your descriptions and whatnot with keywords. It needs to make sense. So yes, you want some key information in there, but you don't want it just peppered. And that's another thing that ChatGPT can help you with. You can write out your content description for your video or your written content or your blog, and then you can give it to ChatGPT and ask it to be to make it more SEO optimized. Or you can say, please write me a description, an SEO metadata description, because you'll need that for your websites anyways. So.
And keyword stuffing, Instagram is actually punishing people for now. So you definitely don't want to be doing that.
And Google started punishing people for doing that eons ago for your websites, because it used to be, you just hide them. And then TikTok was saying hide them. And then, Instagram saying hide them. But then the reality is that always gets caught. It's good for a little while, but it's not a long-term solution. So the long-term solution is craft your content with your keywords and your metadata in mind, but don't overdump it, and don't try to sneak it in there off on the side. No matter how many videos you telling you that that's a good idea, that is no longer a good idea. And it'll either get you shadow banned or, you'll just get nothing back from it.
I'm trying to be much better about SEO this year.
Well, and it's not like SEO is brand new. It's been around for right?
Yeah.
And it comes and goes in waves. With the introduction of the short form video, people sort of got away from it. It wasn't really that big important because hashtags and but it's having a resurgence because it was important, and it's still important. It helps all the search engines, not just Google. It helps all the search engines find you and make sure that you are who you are. And then now the algorithms is helping them find you as well within the platforms. So
and figure out who your audience is, or who you think your audience is.
Next thing that we have on our list here is media integration. That is like sort of melding everything. So in your content, you don't generally just want one form of content. So sometimes you're going to do still photos. Sometimes you're going to do videos. Sometimes it's going to be a personal video. Sometimes it's going to be a video of somebody else, or you're going to stitch people or stuff like that. So it's pulling it in. Written content. I know that Not everybody's down with the whole written content, but I'm telling you, it helps because it sticks around a little longer.
Yeah.
It's people can go back and read it. They might save it. And especially if you're going to do a blog, a blog is a perfect place where you can integrate all forms of media. You've got imagery, video. The only thing you're not adding is music usually.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's so important to remember that everybody consumes data differently, right? Like audiobooks are popular, but they're not, the written books still exist because some people still like to read versus listen. So it's super important to remember when you're trying to reach your ideal audience, just because you think that your ideal audience is going to prefer video because that's what you prefer, it's not necessarily true. So make sure that you're not singling out or excluding any potential people that you could help because you're not putting captions on, you're not doing the posts, the carousels, the stories, and the reels. There's a reason those different ones exist for a reason. So that was a really circular sentence. I apologize, but you know what I'm saying.
Have you ever read philosophy? You can have an entire page as one sentence, and at the end, it's the same thing that you started with. So,
Yeah.
Philosophy of content creation.
There you go.
But even with doing that, you do need to know where your audience likes to hang out, right? Yeah. So if they're Facebook, then maybe the majority of your content is going to be curated for that. And then you cross-post into other areas and recognize what it is you're trying to, who you're trying to reach and for what reason. If you're into cooking and you've got a cooking blog or a cooking YouTube channel or something like that, then Pinterest might be the better choice for you, right? If you're fashion, maybe it's Instagram. If you're an Amazon seller, maybe it's TikTok. It just depends on what it is that who your ideal client is and what it is you're trying to give them.
And what tools you're comfortable using.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can always expand your toolbox, but start with what you know, and then you can always expand from there. Like TikTok now is allowing written posts as well. You're no longer limited to such a small thing, which is interesting that they've decided to incorporate that as well. Right?
Yeah,
that's interesting. It's a post in the sense that it's allowing you to have a lot more verbiage. So.
Yeah, I know every time I log in, it's like, oh, picture posts are doing better. You should try it. And I'm like, okay. Which, I mean, some of the filters are fun. So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what TikTok does the next couple of years.
For me, I don't consider TikTok a main platform for me. And I'm definitely on it and I do utilize it. But it's not a main platform for me because that is not generally where my audience is going to be hanging out. I just know it's not. I mean, it's not to say that there aren't a heck ton of Gen Xers on there and, Zennials on there because I know there is, but not for specifically maybe this.
Yeah.
The other thing is you've got to be consistent. Now, some people are really great at this. They got their coffee in the morning or their tea in the morning or their orange juice or whatever. And they sit down and they have their plan. They know exactly what they're posting, when they're posting, and they've got it all mapped out and they're great for that. And they're very good at that. I am not. I'm a fits and spurts kind of person. And I have to force myself to be consistent.
It goes back to motivation and discipline are two different things, right? So motivation is what is going to get you started. Discipline is what's going to keep you going. So there's this misconception that the people who succeed are just more motivated, and they're not. They're just more disciplined.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's weird because you can be disciplined about certain things where I know I have to do this and I have to do it every day. You go to work every day, right? If you got a job, you go to work every day. You get up, you know what time you have to be there, and you make sure you're there on time and it gets done. So clearly you have the ability. Sometimes when it comes to our own lives where no one else is depending on us but us, we lie to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
we make promises to ourselves that we break, and then therefore we have a harder time trusting ourselves to follow through with the things that we need to do. So I struggle with the discipline part of things, and it's not so much, days get away from me. I think, and a whole day is gone. It's like, oh shit, I need to do something, right? Whereas if I get my stuff together and schedule it out, then it makes the discipline part easier. So the discipline for me is going from I have to post something every day to I have to get my content batched and scheduled, so that part of it's taken care of for me.
Yeah. I think there's also a bit of a, fine line or a balance that needs to be had of like, sometimes you're going to need a break, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you take a break and you come back and the algorithm suddenly loves you because you've been gone, and it's like, oh, well, your first post when you came back was really high on SEO, and I know exactly who you're talking to because you took the time to breathe and step away and came back knowing exactly who you're going to talk to. So it's not to say that taking a break here and there is bad necessarily, but you can't, for the most part, most people can't show up and post once or twice a month and still expect to turn their content into a full-time income.
Yeah, exactly. And the erraticness, if you're going to be super erratic about it, you don't have to necessarily post at 10 a.m. every day. But if you're going to post every day, or, maybe you only post 3 times a week. But if you're consistent in your 3 times a week, that will help. For me, I don't generally work Sundays and Mondays. And the reason for that is that my family is home. My husband is home. That's for his days off. So I might post up something on a Sunday or a Monday, but generally speaking, I'm not really around on those days. I've chosen that specifically. Those are my boundaries, and that is what I want. Yeah. And that's just how it's going to be. And the system's just going to have to deal with it, right? But they will figure it out and recognize it. So usually I'll try to have something that lasts a little bit longer, that maybe I can just pop in and make a comment on, but I'm not actively trying to create content and put it out there. So, that level of consistency has to be within your own whatever.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned accessibility, and that is really simple. That is, if you're doing a video, then you need captions. You either need to enable auto captions, depending on what platform you're on, or you need to put captions on yourself. I do not watch videos with sound up. I almost never do. So for me, if there is somebody talking, now they might have something amazing to say, but if there's no captions, I don't know what you're saying, and I'm not going to watch it, right? Which is, and there are lots of people who can't. Maybe they can't hear, or maybe they're just, it's not as hearing it is hard, or maybe they watch their stuff in areas where they can't necessarily have the sound up. Yeah. For me, it's an auditory issue. It's grating to me. So I prefer to generally have it down quiet or no sound at all. Captions are important. And for a lot of the social media platforms, if you're going to put it up, there is an auto caption option for you, and they can either create the captions like TikTok. You don't even have to create the captions. There is an option where it just says put captions on this, and it'll just play the captions in a little tiny thing. It's not anything fancy or anything. YouTube has the same thing. It automatically adds the captions so that with people who don't have the sound on, they can still see what's going on.
Instagram has the same thing. I think Facebook is the only one that doesn't, that I use regularly, but I can usually just post it to Instagram and then it repurposes to Facebook. So
I don't know. I know that they used to have the captions in the stickers, which was a weird place to have it.
They still do.
So you can physically add captions to it there if that's how you want to do it.
It will auto caption, but it doesn't always pick it up, especially if you've done like a voiceover. It won't necessarily pick up the caption. So there is some tweaking that has to be done. So sometimes you have to, or hears things wrong. So you do need to kind of look at the captions before you post it, unless like you're entertained by the misspelling and then you just want to see if anybody else comments on it, because I've done that before.
Yeah, I know that but yeah, just recognize that everybody you're trying to reach has a different reason or a different way of consuming your content. And the captions don't harm anyone, but they do make it accessible to anyone. So that's a huge deal. Let's see what else we got. Ooh, call to action strategies. I'm starting to add more call to actions because I've been shying away from that.
I suck at them. I think part of my problem is like the CTAs and the hooks in general. Brian and I had this conversation a while ago because he was like, hey, maybe you should make one of those videos about, you know, like, oh, you're driving to work and I'm driving to the park, but you're just going to keep scrolling because, you know, you want to, blah, blah. Or like the people who are like, wait, don't scroll, don't scroll, don't scroll. Those drive me insane because there's such like a just needy, desperate, grimy, slimy feel to them that when I see other people do it, I'm like, oh God, no. I don't want to make videos like that because like to me, it just doesn't speak to me. It doesn't seem right. So we gotta get a kick out of that. But CTAs are kind of similar because sometimes the CTAs are just so and even when I put them in myself, like I'll look back at the video and I'm like, nope, I don't like it. I'll end up taking it out.
I think that part of the CTA is it's not always selling. Right. And that was part of one of the things I had to switch with my mindset, that a call to action is not just selling. And right now, what's big is check the description. Look at the description for more information. That's a huge one that's on right now. And if I want more information, I will do that, you know.
Yeah.
But if you tell me to go to your description and all I see in your description is there's no real information in there, I'm going to be pissed off. So if you're going to use that as a call to action, make sure that what you're adding into your description is actually giving the information that you promised, because if it's not, I'm just going to be annoyed. But your call to action could be something as simple as a poll, or it could be share your thoughts. What are some of your favorite things? It can be a simple question. It's a way to increase engagement. Now that engagement can be hit me up for more information, or, you know, go to this link, but it can also be, let's have a conversation. Tell me what you think, share your ideas. What's your favorite thing? So it doesn't necessarily have to be all sell.
Yeah.
It can be simply trying to increase engagement and to try and get to know your audience better.
And that's one of the reasons that Instagram is really kind of cracking down on the link link in the bio call to action. Because, well, one, there's a lot of scams out there. So I've reported 2 this week on Facebook that are adverts for jobs that are absolute scams. I know for a verified fact they're scams. And so to counteract that, Instagram, Facebook, all of them, when you click a link, it's like, hey, you're leaving whatever platform. Are you sure? So for a lot of smaller businesses who have always used link in the bio, they're losing sales because people are getting that warning message, and they're like, oh, never mind. And so people are really having to rethink the call to action on that, especially. And that's where like, see, the caption comes in handy. But you're right. I do it a lot in my real estate ones where I'm like, what are your thoughts on this house? Let me know in the comments, because I genuinely want to know. And I think that's something that we're going to see is a lot more genuine call to actions of people actually trying to spark a conversation rather than just get the sale.
There's nothing wrong with your call to action having, a request to sale, especially if you've got something that's time limited. I know you're frozen again, dear. Don't worry. But yeah, so if you've got a time limited thing, like right now I'm working with Claire and she's got a program that's coming up, a boot camp that's going to be March 4th. So there is a time limited. So you're going to want to put that into your call to action, letting people know there's a time limit for you to be interested and involved. And that is perfectly okay. If you got a sale or you're wanting to try and do something where, it's a time limited situation, like you've got a sale on something that, 50% off or whatever, but it is only for this. Put that in your call to action and let people know. But your call to action doesn't always have to be sales, and there's nothing wrong if it is for sales, but just make sure it's clear, it's concise, it's got the time limit if that's necessary, and maybe if you're going to do a call to action that's a sales or even just an engagement one, give people a reason to respond.
Yeah.
Not just buy my stuff or answer my question or whatever. Give them a reason. Make it, make it official to them as well. Right? It's a symbiotic relationship. You want information, you want their support, you want their attention. So what are you giving them in return for all of that?
Yeah. Yeah. And engaging with people online is where I struggle as well. Cause like I can get the content out there, but then like I won't look back at my account for like the rest of the day. And so that's something I gotta, doesn't help that right now my content phone is busted.
Oh.
But that's something I struggle with. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't get more comments is because when I do get comments, they're usually bot comments anyway, and I don't respond. And so I think Instagram, Facebook, all of them see that I'm not responding and they're like, okay, well, we're not going to push your stuff then because you're not keeping people on the platform. And it can be challenging to interact and engage with the trolls, the spam, the bots, but it's still important that we do it.
Yep, absolutely.
That's something I'm working on.
Although I will say, if somebody comments on something where I've asked a question and it's obviously them just trying to sell me something, well, first of all, if they put a link in, it's automatically hidden. So no one else is going to see that anyways. A lot of times I'll leave that. If it's hidden, I'll just leave it because it's there and it's another comment. But just because nobody else can see it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
So, and then the last step is your testing and iteration, which you've been doing a lot of testing with your content.
Yeah.
So just simply put out tests, A/B tests. You write the same thing, or you do the same thing, or you do a video and a written of the same topic. See which one's pulling better. Just maybe and test different platforms as well. We've lost her again, my poor thing. Like maybe you put it across platform and see which one is doing better. And recognize how that's working, because always keep track of your data and stay on top of it, because that's the information that's going to tell you if your content is landing or if it's not landing. And as always, if you're still struggling, there is support out there for that, right? There are different courses. I just said just a couple minutes ago, I'm going to be taking this course with Claire called Unleash, which is specifically directed towards content, because I want more support for my content. I want to make it better.
Yeah.
And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. Find yourself a mentor, work with them there. If there's all sorts of different ways to handle that. If you're struggling in certain areas, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. And it doesn't have to break your bank in order to do it. So that's it.
Love it.
I know we do. We're getting a little bit longer. Oops.
Yeah, is that too?
That's funny.
It's fine.
That's fine. As always, as I say at the end of every single one of these beautiful dark roasts, is if you have questions or if you have comments, please drop them below. Let us know. If you're watching this on a replay, please hit replay and just tell us that. If there's something you'd like to see us talk about, if there's a very specific thing that you want us to see and delve into more, please let us know, because we are always open to ideas. And if you have questions or you want support, reach out to either Rose or I, because we are more than happy to help you in anything that we can. All right. Yes. So I think that's it for this Friday, my dear.
I believe so.
All right. So everybody out there, you have a great day. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Bye.
Later.